The day had been long, loud, and full of explosions, and Ethan Cole had survived it only because luck seemed to like him more than anyone else in his squad. The dust of the ruined outpost still floated in the air like thin smoke, settling over the metal crates and the pieces of broken alien structures left behind after the fight. Ethan only wanted a quiet corner to breathe, maybe drink some water, and thank the universe that he was still alive. He had no idea his small mistake would change everything about his life. He walked into the abandoned storage hall, a large room with flickering lights and half-broken doors. He thought the room was empty. His squad had already moved on to sweep the far side of the base, and the command channel was silent. He pushed open the door slowly, expecting shadows and silence. Instead, he froze like someone had put a hand on the back of his neck. Inside the room stood an alien woman, tall, strong, battle-marked, and unmistakably dangerous. She was one of the mercenaries who had been hired by the enemy side earlier in the war. Ethan had seen her fighting earlier that day from a distance. She fought like a storm. Her people were known for discipline, speed, and loyalty to whoever paid them. Her armor was dark and heavy, covering nearly every inch of her body. But now she was turning her back to him, lifting the thick plates of that armor piece by piece, letting them drop quietly onto the floor. She was not undressing in the human way. She was simply removing her battle armor, unaware that a human soldier had just walked in. But Ethan didn't know her customs, and she didn't know human ones. He blinked in shock and opened his mouth to speak, but his voice failed him. Instead, the mercenary woman turned around, half of her armor already removed, and her eyes widened when she saw him. They were bright silver, shining even in the dim light of the room. She stared at him as if he had walked straight into a sacred ritual. Ethan raised his hands instinctively. I'm sorry. I didn't know someone was inside." But her expression did not soften. If anything, she looked even more alert. She stood tall, shoulders squared, staring at him as though something serious had just happened between them. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she stepped forward, her boots echoing on the metal floor, each step slow and deliberate. "You saw me unarmored," she said in a calm, steady voice. Her accent was sharp, her words shaped differently, but he understood them clearly. A human dared to witness my shedding of battle shell. Ethan had no idea what battle shell meant at first. Only later would he understand it was the closest translation for armor. But he could already tell she wasn't simply bothered. She looked offended, surprised, or perhaps something else he couldn't guess. "I didn't mean to." He tried again. "I wasn't spying. I just needed a place to rest for a moment." "You entered without permission," she replied, "and you watched." "No, I wasn't watching. I walked in by accident. I didn't know what you were doing." Her silver eyes narrowed. Not angry, just intensely focused. "According to my people's law, if one witnesses a warrior unarmored, it establishes a claim." "A claim?" Ethan repeated, confused. Her chin lifted slightly. "A life claim. A bond of honor. You, human, have seen me without my battle shell. You have acknowledged me in a vulnerable state." Ethan wanted to argue. He wanted to explain that humans did not have such rules, that he wasn't acknowledging anything, and that he simply did not want to die because of an accident. But her voice and posture said she wasn't threatening him. She was stating something serious and unchangeable. "I don't want to claim you," he said quickly, waving his hands. "I don't even know what that means." The mercenary didn't step back. She seemed almost insulted by that answer. "You would reject the honor? After witnessing something so private among my people?" I didn't witness anything," he said. "I literally just walked in. I didn't even know it was private." She studied his face as if searching for truth. Her expression softened a little when she saw how genuinely uncomfortable he looked. She let out a slow breath and crossed her arms, not defensively, but thoughtfully. "You humans are strange," she murmured. "You walk into places without understanding the meaning of things." "That's a fair point," Ethan admitted. She looked at him again. This time less like a dangerous warrior, and more like someone trying to understand a new species. I am Sira Talren. She introduced herself. Mercenary of the 7th Rift Company. I fought against your army under contract. That contract ended with today's battle. Unreverie. The 7th Rift Company. Close 7th. Unreverie 40. He nodded slowly, relieved she wasn't attacking him. Ethan Cole. Alliance engineer. Not much of a fighter. Honestly, you survived a battle against my company, Sira replied. You are more of a fighter than you think. Ethan didn't know how to respond to that, so he simply nodded. Sira watched him with quiet curiosity. She lowered her arms but did not move further away. Instead, she tilted her head slightly. My people say that when a warrior sheds her armor in the presence of another, the witness must protect her until she chooses to don the armor again. She explained. Do humans follow such customs? No, Ethan said quickly. Then why did you stay? She asked. I froze, he said honestly. I wasn't expecting someone to be here. Sira considered this. And then a small, almost invisible shift happened in her posture. Her shoulders relaxed by a fraction. Her voice softened. Then you did not mean to claim me. No, he said, shaking his head. I really didn't. But, she continued, before he could feel fully relieved. The claim may stand anyway. Not because you wished it, but because I did not dismiss you the moment you entered. What does that mean? Ethan asked carefully. It means, she said slowly, that I accepted your presence, and by not reacting with force, I acknowledged your right to witness. Ethan swallowed. So what now? Sira took a step closer. Not threatening, more curious. Almost cautious. Now we decide whether the claim becomes real. Along and about her 4. 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 He shook his head. I don't want to force anything. I don't want to own anyone. You misunderstand, she said firmly. A claim is not ownership. It is protection, partnership, duty. If accepted, I would guard your life with mine, and you would guard mine with yours. Ethan stared at her. That sounds intense. It is, she agreed. He didn't know what to say. So he took a deep breath and tried to think. He didn't want trouble. He didn't want her angry, either. And he didn't want to disrespect her customs. But he also didn't want to accidentally sign up for a lifelong bond. A loud, metallic groan suddenly echoed through the outpost. Both of them turned sharply. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the ground trembled slightly. Ethan's comm channel crackled to life. Ethan, are you near the storage hall? A voice asked with panic. Movement detected enemy survivors incoming. Sira reached for the remaining part of her armor but paused. She couldn't put it back on fast enough. She looked at Ethan. The claim, she said quietly, requires that you stand with me. Ethan felt his heart pound. He hadn't wanted to claim her. He still didn't fully understand what it meant. But he did know one thing. If those enemy soldiers stormed in now, neither of them could survive alone. He grabbed his tool belt blaster and took a step toward her side. Then let's stand together. Sira's silver eyes widened slightly, not shocked, but almost impressed. Very well, human. Let the claim begin. Together, they faced the trembling doorway, ready for whatever came next. The shaking door rattled again, and dust fell from the ceiling as Ethan and Sira stood shoulder to shoulder. Ethan's fingers trembled slightly on his blaster. He wasn't a soldier. He was an engineer who knew more about broken engines than battlefield tactics. But something inside him had shifted the moment Sira said the words, "Let the claim begin." It wasn't fear. It was a strange calm, like he had already chosen a path without planning it. Sira remained still but alert, her muscles tense as if she had spent her entire life waiting for this moment. Even without her full armor, she looked like a warrior carved from strength itself. Her eyes never left the door. Ethan realized she wasn't nervous at all. She was Ready. The door burst open with a crack, and 3 enemy survivors rushed in with harsh metallic rifles. Ethan recognized their armor plates. They were deserters from the mercenary faction Sira, once fought beside. They didn't follow orders anymore. They were desperate and violent, surviving on whatever they could steal. One looked half-injured already, limping slightly. The first soldier raised his weapon and spotted Ethan immediately. "You, human!" he shouted. But then his eyes shifted to Sira. "And you?" "Traitor." Sira stepped forward without hesitation. "Your contract ended. You have no right to be here." "Neither do you," the limping one sneered. "You abandoned us for the humans." "I abandoned nothing," Sira replied. "The battle ended. My service ended. And your dishonor is not mine to share." The soldier pulled the trigger. Before Ethan could blink, Sira moved fast, incredibly fast, grabbing Ethan by the shoulder and pulling him behind a crate. The laser shot burned a hole where his head had been a second earlier. Ethan's heart jumped so hard he almost dropped his blaster. Sira turned her head slightly toward him. "You guard my life," she said calmly, "and I guard yours." "That wasn't guarding, that was saving," Ethan whispered in shock. "It was both," she replied. Another shot echoed, and Sira leaped over the crate. Her movements were graceful, almost silent, and in one swift strike she disarmed the nearest attacker, twisting the rifle from his grasp. Ethan rose and fired a single shot at the floor near the enemy's boots, not enough to kill, only enough to shock him and push him backward. The man stumbled, giving Sira a chance to disable him with a sharp blow to the helmet. The 2 remaining enemies hesitated. Ethan thought they might run, but instead they regrouped behind a metal pillar. One shouted something in their own language, short, clipped sounds Ethan couldn't understand. Sira understood it perfectly. Her jaw tightened. "They mean to take you," she told Ethan. "They think a human engineer is valuable." "Lucky me," Ethan muttered. Sira didn't smile, but something about her eyes softened for a heartbeat. "They do not realize you already stand under my protection." "And the claim makes that serious?" he asked. "Very serious." Ethan peeked over the crate. One enemy leaned out to fire again. Sira spotted him first, and threw the stolen rifle like a spear. It struck his chest plate and knocked him off balance. Ethan fired 2 quick shots at the ground again, not lethal, but distracting. The enemy slipped, hitting the floor hard. The last man panicked and ran toward the door. Sira sprinted after him, her bare arms moving in clean arcs, her boots barely touching the ground. She caught him by the back of his armor and pulled him down. He tried to strike her, but she dodged easily, pinned him, and removed the power cell from his weapon before he could react. Ethan approached slowly, breathing heavily. The room was quiet now, except for the hum of broken lights. Sira stood and looked at him. "You fought," she said simply. "I tried," Ethan replied. "You succeeded." He wasn't sure about that, but he nodded anyway. They secured the 3 enemies, dragging them to a corner and tying them with emergency cable wires Ethan carried in his kit. When Sira tightened the bindings with practiced skill, Ethan's eyes followed her movements. She was precise, efficient, almost elegant. When she finished, she turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "Ethan," she said quietly, "you stood with me despite fear. You accepted the claim." "I didn't say the words," he reminded gently. "You didn't have to," Sira said. "Action speaks. In my culture, standing beside a warrior without armor during danger is equal to accepting." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "This culture of yours, do all these rules always happen so suddenly?" "Yes." "No warning?" "No." He sighed. "Great." Sira watched him closely. "Does this trouble you?" "I don't know yet," Ethan admitted honestly. "It's a lot." She nodded. She respected the truth in his voice. Before they could continue, Ethan's calm cracked again. "Ethan, your signal vanished for 2 minutes. Are you safe?" "We detected hostiles near your location," he responded quickly. "I'm safe. Hostiles neutralized. But I'm not alone." "Who's with you?" Ethan looked at Sira. She looked back without answering, almost as if waiting for him to decide. In that brief moment, Ethan felt strange responsibility settling over him, not forced, not unwelcome, but heavy. Like something meaningful, he answered slowly. A former mercenary. She's neutral now. She helped me. Is she a threat? The voice asked. Ethan paused. He glanced at Sira. She stood tall, half-armored, silent, trusting him to choose the words. For someone who claimed to be emotionless in battle, her expression held an unexpected softness when she looked at him. No, he said quietly. She's not a threat. Copy that. We're sending a team to extract you both. Both? Ethan echoed. Yes. Command wants to question any mercenaries who switch sides. Keep her secured. Sira raised an eyebrow. Secured? Ethan held up his hands to her. They don't understand you helped me. They just want to be cautious. I do not need to be restrained like a criminal, she said softly, not angry, but firm. I know, he assured her. I'll talk to them. I'll make sure they don't treat you badly. Sira studied him again, searching for honesty. She found it. Then I will trust your words. Ethan Cole. As they waited for extraction, Ethan helped her reattach parts of her armor. Some pieces were damaged, and she guided his hands silently, showing him how her people designed their armor to fit like a second skin. Her movements slowed a little as she worked, and at one point she winced slightly. Ethan immediately noticed. You're hurt, he said. It is nothing, she replied. A small bruise. That means something, he insisted kindly. Sit. To his surprise, she obeyed. He examined the bruise on her shoulder, only a light mark. Nothing dangerous, but he still applied a cooling gel from his kit. Sira watched him with an unreadable expression. Her people were not used to others tending to them. Warriors usually healed alone. You treat injuries as if they matter, she said quietly. They do, Ethan replied. Sira looked at the ground, thinking. In my culture, a claim is strongest when both protect each other. Many witness, few accept. Fewer still act. Well, I acted because I didn't want you to get hurt, Ethan said, a little embarrassed. Then your heart accepted before your mind did, she murmured. Perhaps that is the human way. A soft rumble echoed outside. The extraction shuttle was landing. Ethan stood and offered a hand to help her up. She hesitated for a second, then placed her hand in his. Her grip was strong but warm, surprisingly gentle. The shuttle door slid open, and 4 soldiers stepped out with rifles raised, aiming directly at Sira. Ethan moved in front of her instantly, arms spread slightly. Don't point weapons at her, he shouted. She helped me survive. The soldiers froze. Sira watched him carefully, her expression unreadable, but her eyes brightening for a moment. Stand down, one soldier said after a long pause. Command will want to hear your full report. Both of you. On board. Sira stepped forward with calm authority. Ethan followed. The shuttle door closed behind them, separating them from the battlefield and pulling them into a future neither fully understood yet. As the shuttle lifted into the sky, Sira leaned slightly toward him. Not enough for the others to see, just enough for him to hear her quiet words. Ethan, she said, when a warrior accepts a life claim, she does not break it easily. You must understand that. I'm trying, he said softly. I promise. And, she added, you stood in front of armed men to shield me. That is a declaration in my culture. Declaration of what? He asked nervously. She turned her silver eyes toward him. Of choosing me, she whispered. Ethan's heart skipped. He hadn't meant to choose anyone, but maybe, somehow, he already had. The shuttle vibrated softly as it flew toward the Alliance base, carrying Ethan and Sira away from the broken outpost. Inside, the atmosphere felt tight and watchful. The soldiers who had come for extraction kept glancing at Sira with suspicion, whispering to one another as quietly as they could. They weren't hostile, but their hands stayed close to their rifles, ready at any moment. Sira noticed everything, but she didn't react. Her posture remained straight, her expression calm. Only Ethan could see the very small signs, the slow breath she took to stay patient, the careful stillness of her hands. She wasn't afraid, but she was prepared. That was her way. Ethan sat close to her, trying to figure out the right words. There were so many things he wanted to ask her, to understand her culture, her people, her laws, but the soldiers were listening, and the conversation inside the shuttle belonged to official voices, not personal ones. It felt like a long flight before the shuttle finally landed. The doors opened to reveal the main Alliance base. Tall steel walls, bright lights, and rows of soldiers moving with purpose. The air smelled of fuel and metal. When Sira stepped out, dozens of eyes turned toward her instantly. Some surprised, some wary, some confused. Ethan walked beside her, refusing to let her walk alone into a place where everyone misjudged her. A commander approached an older woman with sharp eyes who had clearly spent too many years giving orders under fire. She looked at Sira first, then at Ethan. "You must be Ethan Cole," she said. "Your report said a mercenary helped you survive." "This is her?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "Her name is Sira Talren." The commander folded her arms. "We will question her. Standard procedure. You will also be questioned about your time at the outpost." Ethan expected this. What he didn't expect was the small tightening in Sira's posture when two soldiers stepped forward to escort her. She didn't like the idea of being separated from him. He didn't like it either. He stepped slightly closer to her before they could lead her away. "Sira, it's okay," he said quietly. "I'll make sure they treat you fairly." Sira held his eyes for a long moment. She didn't show emotion, but something strong and serious passed between them. A promise of trust. Or maybe something even deeper. "I will answer their questions," she said softly. "But do not let them speak for me. Only truth must be told." "It will be," Ethan whispered. She nodded and followed the soldiers. Even without her full armor, Sira walked like a warrior, leaving a quiet strength in her footsteps. Ethan was taken to a different room, small, cold, with one bright light overhead. An officer began the questioning immediately. They wanted every detail. The fight, the moment he found Sira, her actions, the enemy survivors, but most of all, they wanted to know one thing. "Engineer Cole," the officer said. "Why do you believe she switched sides?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He remembered how she had stepped in front of the attackers, how she had trusted him with her back, and how she had accepted the strange bond of her culture with absolute honesty. "She didn't switch sides," Ethan finally said. "Her contract ended. When the battle was over, she wasn't bound to anyone. She chose to help me because it was right, and because someone was trying to kill us both." The officer wrote something down. "Did she attempt to manipulate you in any way?" "No," Ethan said firmly. "If she wanted to harm me, she could have done it 100 times before extraction. Does she owe you anything?" That question struck Ethan unexpectedly. He thought about the claim, the strange customs she had told him about, the way she believed their lives were tied because he had stood beside her when she was unarmored. "No," Ethan said slowly. "She doesn't owe me anything. If anything, I owe her." The questioning went on, but Ethan stayed calm. His answers were honest, clear, and steady. When it was finally over, the officer dismissed him. Outside the room, the hallway was quiet. Ethan walked quickly toward the interrogation wing, determined to check on Sira. But before he reached the door, he saw her step out, flanked by 2 guards but not held. Her expression was calm, but her eyes found him instantly, as if she had been waiting only for him. The guards hesitated as Ethan approached, unsure whether to stop him. But the commander stepped out right behind Sira and gestured for them to lower their hands. "The mercenary has answered our questions without lies," the commander said. "Her story matches yours in every important detail." Ethan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "She is not a prisoner," the commander continued. "But she is not free to leave until we verify all remaining information." We will place her under observation. Observation? Ethan repeated. She must remain on base and report once per day, but she may move freely in non-restricted areas. That didn't sound too bad. Sierra seemed to think so as well. She turned to Ethan and said, "This base is safer than most places I have been." The commander nodded once more and walked away. The guards followed her, leaving Sierra and Ethan alone in the hallway. For the first time since the battle, Ethan allowed himself to relax. "They didn't treat you badly, did they?" he asked. "They questioned me," she said simply. "That is expected." "They did not insult my honor." "That is enough." He smiled a little. "Good." She studied his face carefully. "You are tired." "Yeah," Ethan admitted. "I think the longest day of my life just ended." Sierra nodded. Then she glanced around the hallway. "Where will you go now?" "To my quarters," he said. "I need rest. Water. Maybe food that doesn't taste like old rations." Sierra looked thoughtful. "I must learn your base layout if I am to stay here. You want me to show you around tomorrow?" Ethan asked. "If you choose to," she replied. He hesitated for a moment. "Do I get to choose? Or does the claim choose for me?" Sierra stepped closer. Not too close, just close enough that her words felt like they were meant only for him. "The claim is not a prison," she said softly. "It is a bond of protection. It strengthens when chosen, weakens when ignored. If you walk beside me, I walk beside you. If you wish distance, I will not force you." That surprised him. He had expected her culture to be stricter. "So you're saying, the bond only matters if both agree?" "Yes," she said. "Honor only has meaning when given freely." He let out a slow breath. "Then, I choose to walk beside you." "There." He had said it without fear. Sierra didn't smile, her people didn't smile often, but her expression warmed. Her silver eyes softened, like moonlight touching water. "Then I accept your choosing," she whispered. They walked together toward the residential wing of the base. Along the way, curious soldiers stared at them, whispering questions. Ethan ignored them. Sierra ignored them even more completely. Her focus stayed on the path in front of her, and on Ethan's presence beside her. When they reached the door to his quarters, Ethan stopped. "You should get some rest," he told her. "Tomorrow, we'll figure everything out." Sierra nodded. "Very well." She turned to leave, then paused. "Ethan," she said, "in my culture, when a warrior accepts a bond, she speaks one final truth." "What truth?" he asked. Sierra placed her fist against her chest, a gesture of respect, loyalty, and depth. "I stand for you," she said. "Not because of the claim, but because you stood for me first." Ethan felt something shift inside him, something heavy, meaningful, real. "And I stand for you," he replied gently. "Not because of your culture, but because I want to." Sierra bowed her head slightly, accepting his words with warrior pride. Then, she walked away. Her steps slow and steady, disappearing down the hallway with the certainty of someone no longer alone. Ethan watched her go before stepping into his room. For the first time since the mission began, he felt peace. He didn't know what the future held, how Sierra would fit into the alliance, whether her people would accept her choices, or how their strange bond would grow. But he knew one thing clearly. He hadn't claimed her. They had chosen each other. Together, they would face whatever came next.